Welcome to another episode of Best of 3 presented by Esports, shot here live in our studio in Austin, Texas. Sunny Austin, Texas, because it's hot as hell out there.
A little too sunny.
Mike, the cloud shirt would make it seem like it's a nice airy day. No, it's warm as hell.
Well, it was luau day at work today, actually. So, I learned to dance a little better, drank some free beer. It was nice.
We're not here to talk about what you ate. And you're eating, I hope you weren't eating like pork or anything, were you? All right, guys.
I am Jewish.
We're going to talk about some fighting games today because that's what this show is about. We're going to give you your CPT recap. We're going to talk about Bud Light All-Stars. We're going to talk about prize purses being growing. And what else are we talking about? Let's take a look here. 8 frames. Lost in translation. To help us talk about those things, as they do every week, is John Velociraptor Guerrero. You know him from EventHubs.com. And Steve Ace King Offsuit Jurek, who writes for .esports. Welcome, guys. Did y'all have a good weekend?
It was all right.
It was all right?
It was all right. It might get a little better tonight, depending on how things go. But we'll see. We'll see.
John, are you in heaven? It looks really washed out in your image there.
I'm wondering if maybe I do this. That change anything?
Oh, yeah. You put a little color on your face, man. There we go.
Far better.
All right, guys, let's kick off the show like we always do. We had a premiere event over the weekend. We hadn't had one of those in a while. How about a CPT recap, gentlemen?
That sounds like a great idea. This past weekend was DreamHack Summer in Sweden. It was the only event of the weekend, so it wasn't huge on quantity, but you had a lot of quality. You had a lot of the top European players in the house. Luffy, Valmaster was not there, but Luffy, Phenom, Will Tupac, all the usual killers, Reinhardt. And you had much of the top Asian talent. If you remember back to Stunfest, the last European premiere, top 8 was entirely Asian. So we were wondering, would we get a repeat of that? And the answer was a surprising no. The winner was actually a European player, Phenom from Norway, defending home turf successfully with some incredible play all weekend. He became the first European player to win a premier event in nearly 2 years. He ended up taking it over Fudo in the grand finals. That's the second straight grand finals that Fudo made. Tokido third. Once again, close, but not quite there. Tokido was actually the beneficiary of unique format in at DreamHack. We'll get into that later. But you had Haitani fourth, Daigo and Luffy tying for fifth, and Mago and Momochi rounding out the top 8.
We're looking at it there. Of course, the big surprise was that a European player, as you already pointed out, won. And later in the show, I forgot to mention, our guests will be none other than the commentators of majority of that stream, which were F-Word and Logan Sama. And we're going to be asking them specifically about how they feel about having a European guy take that tournament. So we're excited about that conversation later in the show.
Can I just mention, more Mikas and Nakalis in top 3 and top 4?
I don't know why I thought that we were going to see less Armikas early on, because so many people were talking. More. Well, that's the thing. But so many people were talking shit about Armika being a scrubby character, and people are going to figure that out, and this, that, and the other. You put an Armika in the hands of a Fudo, and I've been seeing a bunch of other people.
Luffy.
Or a Marn too. Yeah, I mean, these crazy setups are still being discovered. There's all kinds of cool stuff. I know Marn wasn't a DreamHack, but there were some highlights going around. That character is really strong.
I've got a lot to say about the way Street Fighter works as a whole, and why jabs and DPs are good things, and why 50-50s are good things, but we'll get into that later.
All right, back to you, Steve. Let's keep hearing that recap.
All right, so after that, if we take a look at the overall standings, the big change is Phenom. Not only did he move up to third in the standings, but he is now qualified for Capcom Cup. The rest of the top 10, the only new addition is Fudo after his second place finish. He kicked K-Brad out of the top 10. So now you have just 3 Americans in the top 10 now: Justin, Julio, and Chris T.
Again, the benefit of getting those points early, right? I mean, who knows? They still have that advantage. Certainly Justin Wong does. But K-Brad got knocked out then.
Yeah, so that's why he's not a notable player.
He is currently still leading the Latin America, though, right? Or at least he's up there.
He is in the top 2 or top 3. It's excuse me, from Chile.
Mysterio?
Yes. I am completely blanking on names today. That's okay.
It is,
It's
buddy.
going to be a long week. It's going to be a long week.
It is, and we're looking forward to CEO this weekend. We'll talk about that a little bit later. Winners and losers. Steve, what do you got for us? Usually this we don't get to winners and losers this quickly, but there weren't as many events over the weekend.
Yeah, so obviously you got to start with Phenom. Like I said, you think back to what Valmaster did at VS Fighting 4 back in October, or excuse me, back in August of 2014. That was the last time a European player won a premier event. And you think about the guys he had to beat to get there. He didn't luck into this. He beat Reketsu, he beat Mago, Daigo, and then took 2 sets from Fudo. If you do that, you absolutely deserve to be in Capcom Cup.
Who is our next winner? I agree with you, right? And that was one thing you were saying, is like people who were calling Phenom a fraud, and we'll get into
I'm
that
sure
later.
this will get more into it later, but basically, the way he won was very similar to the way Kazunoko won Capcom Cup in 2015, and it's a very legitimate way to play the game. And in some ways, I would say the optimal.
Ironically, and sorry to interrupt, but we had Combo Fiend on once, and he was saying that based off of that Capcom Cup, the last one we saw for 4, he was like, I don't like the way the game is being played. And you're saying, well, we're right back at that.
In
We're
ways,
referring to
yes.
Kazunoko.
In ways, yes. The way that basically picking an option on Wake Up is become more and more aggressive and less based on blocking, yes.
There you go. All right, who is our next winner?
Well, I was trying to limit it to one. I was going back and forth between Haitani, Fudo, and Tokido. I decided to just give it up to all of Japan. You look at their performance over the last 2 premier events; they have taken 12 of the top 8 spots out of a possible 16 over the last 2 events. You have Tokido, who is now 5 for 5 in making top 3s. You have Haitani, who is 8 for 8 in making top 8s. You have Tokido, who's basically qualified now. He did enough to get in, so he can take the rest of the year off if he wants. Fudo and Haitani are really close. And not only their success, but their success and the possibility of them getting in via global points opens up the room for more people to get in via the Asian leaderboard. So people like Kazunoko, like Eita, like Daigo, who aren't quite as high up yet, this was a good weekend for them as well.
Next winner.
And the last one, Problem X. This is going to sound kind of weird because he wasn't even there, but what Phenom's win did is it essentially took him out of the running for that EU leaderboard spot. So now Problem X is number 1 in that leaderboard essentially by a fairly large margin, about 65 points at this. So he is in much better position now than he was coming into the weekend, even though he didn't play.
Now remind me, if you're at the top of the leaderboard, you qualify for a spot in a last chance qualifier, or do you automatically make it? I'm trying to remember exactly how that works.
The way it works is that the 16, you have the 12 people who get in via regular premier events. Then you have the 4 people who get in via not the last chance qualifiers, but the regional finals. Then they go to the global leaderboard. Then they take 2 apiece from the regional leaderboard. So if you're number 2 at the end of the year in one of the leaderboards, even if you haven't won a premier event and you don't win the regional final, you're still going to be guaranteed.
Let's go on to losers, and I'm glad there was no Latin America events so that you don't say that Mexico is losers.
Well,
don't bring up the 7-0 from the Copa America. Damn it, I set myself up for that, didn't I?
You opened the door, I just waltzed right in. I'm sorry.
All right, let's go to the actual CPT losers.
This is going to be kind of harsh, but I got to put Will Tupac there. And again, this is not because he played poorly. He played quite well. He beat Reiketsu, he beat Veggie. He ended up losing to Haitani and Genius, which there's no shame in that, but ends up tied for 17th. He gets nothing out of the weekend. his 0 points are coming off the back of his 2 best performances of the year over the last 2 weeks. So kind of a disappointing step backwards. It's tough to call this a step backwards, but he certainly didn't help himself this weekend.
I'd like to note that he is also, from what I understand, not going to be coming to CEO anymore. As of today.
Will Tupac?
Will Tupac has not going to be coming
What'd you hear, Mike? How'd you know?
I heard from people who help run the tournament.
Yeah, and you've helped with that stuff there. Anyway. All right, so Will Tupac will not be at CEO, according to Mike. Next loser, please.
Next loser, I got to go with the rest of Europe. And again, this is harsh, but even though they had great individual results, like Phenoms run, amazing. Ryan Hart getting the win over Momochi, incredible. But you look at the total results, 6 of their top 8 spots went outside of the European region. That's going to hurt them in the long run when it comes to qualifying via the global leaderboard. Now it's looking like it's going to just be people coming in through the regional leaderboard and maybe one premiere at the end of the year, depending on who wins EGX.
This next loser clip, we had to blow some dust off of it. You went to the archives for this one. Why don't you set it up, man?
I had to. U.S. is looking like the land of the free right now.
Goodness.
What you see on the screen, that is back from October 2014. That is the last time an American player won a premier event. It has been now 621 days, by far the longest streak since thanks to Phenom's win. So you think about, like, PR Rog was scheduled to go this weekend. He had work issues. He couldn't go. But I'm surprised there weren't really any other top American players. If you're a sponsored player, if you're sponsoring somebody and your goal is to get them into Capcom Cup, why aren't you sending them to these other events? You know, K-Brad did quite well at the European event he went to last year. Justin, he doesn't need to, but he's willing to travel just about anywhere. Why aren't we seeing more American players taking advantage of a chance to earn more points and getting into the finals?
You know,
I don't understand.
It was probably because of the NBA Finals. They didn't want to go, man. Steve, you don't think so?
You know, it wasn't happening earlier this year, outside of maybe Gutex, but he was tied up with Money in the Bank this week, so, you know, it's understandable.
You're keeping up on everybody's business, huh?
I'm a nosy guy.
All right, this week we have a more robust recap because John has been kind enough to pick some of his favorite plays from over the weekend, and he's going to share them with us. John, I'll take it from there, buddy.
Okay, so we watch these highlights and such, and they're fun to watch. They're exciting. They spike our interest. We go, oh wow, cool. But I wanted to take it just a little bit deeper and go, why is it that these particular moves were so good, and try to get into the thought process of these top players, see exactly how they came to do this amazing thing in the middle of a really high stakes situation. So I think we grabbed 3 different highlights from DreamHack, and we have the first one. Yeah. So the first one here is Tokido, and he does something that we've seen before with Ryu, and that's parrying Chun-Li's instant air lightning legs. Not the easiest thing to do. You kind of need the read on it, but when you do it, it looks sick. But the thing I want to point out here is, like, we already know Tokido is an amazing player, but the way he was able to basically pick the game apart, understand the situation, and be ready to parry 3 hits, not 2, because it depends on how high Chun is. She might hit you 3 times, or she might hit you 2. He identified she's 3 hits,
Wow.
the height for 3 hits, so he does 3. And then he punishes with the most ridiculous optimal combo, taking her life, as you can see, from more than half life down. He gets all the way, at least I think so, very close.
It's close, yeah, it's close to half life.
All the way down to nothing. Like, that is the mark of the highest caliber of players that I think we can ask for. And the fact that Tokido had this kind of sound mind in the middle of this crazy situation, in the middle of this big tournament, it's just a testament to how amazing he is.
And the thing I'd like to bring up in relation to that is just how important a proactive defense is. Obviously, I mean, you can block a lightning legs and you take 10 chip damage. It's not a big deal. but at that point you're -1. And so, as John said, to have the peace of mind to do that in the situation gives him 50% instead of -1.
And John, I mean, I watched this match. There's a ton of lightning legs throughout the set. Is there anything that you detected where he was like, okay, I know he's been doing a lot of lightning legs, I'm gonna bait it out this time, or I'll be ready for it at the very least?
Well, see, that's kind of what a high level player is going to do, and you see that Tokido does it in this specific instance. He had as much meter as he did, and he had as much damage potential as he did, and he chose to do it here, closing out this entire round. You know, he could have done it at the beginning of round 1 and got a pretty decent punish for, you know, maybe a third of a life bar. But here he chose to do it later on in the set where it would do the absolute most damage. And I bet you after this moment, you know, we're not going to see quite as many lightning legs coming out, right? So that's another aspect of a top level player, to know when to show that you're sniffing out things, when to show your tech in a match, and when not to. And this is something though that we've seen Tokido kind of building on. I think it was a week or two ago, he was playing Sako's Chun-Li, and he actually countered Sako's V reversal with a parry. And you're like, what an innovator, you know? Like, whoever thought of parrying a V reversal? But he did, and instead of getting a throw for a punish, he got a bajillion damage and looked amazing and did Tokido stuff, and we're all like, oh, you're the best.
John, what else you got for us? That was one of 3 highlights.
Yeah, so moving on to the next one, I believe this is the butts. Yeah, so we have Fudo's Mika, and you'll see right here, he has this forward throw, power bomb, activates, and then butts past Tokido, or is it Tokido he's playing? Yeah, past Tokido, into the corner for this crazy mix-up, and eventually takes the entire round off of it. Of course, like I said, it looks flashy, it looks cool, but let's think about it for a second. You know, we look at Mika players, and we look at the way Mika has played out thus far in the game, and we go, oh, what they must be thinking is, I'm just going to go blah, 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 crazy until I get that hit into the blender, and then I'm just going to pick whatever option I want, and then hope it wins. You know, oops, all berries. Oops, all crunch berries, I mean. But Mika is actually a character that Fudo's showing us, like, there's some really good stuff out there for it, and we can do more than just the traditional Mika blender options. He gets the forward throw. It's one of 2 different kinds of forward throws Mika can do. So he identifies, he hits the power bomb, and then it instantly activates and uses a move, the regular shooting peach or the butt. We normally see EX butt, but he uses regular butt, a move that we hardly ever see, not to attack his opponent, but to actually move past him, and corners himself, which is a very dangerous thing to do, especially in this kind of a situation. But corners himself, gets this crazy mix-up, and takes out someone as good as Tokido. And I'm sure this is not the first time this Mika setup has been done, but it's the first time I've seen it. It's the first time a lot of people have seen it, and apparently it's the first time Tokido's seen it. So,
which way do you have to block on this?
That's probably a cross-up, I would assume.
So it's hitting behind him.
Yeah, he probably should.
Then Nadeshiko hits behind him.
Yeah, but it should be that wherever Mika is at is where the blocking, and it seems like Mika has already passed. So
yeah, I'm assuming it's a cross-up for that reason, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Cool.
Well, yeah.
I mean, I have no idea. That's the thing, is I'm sure he can adjust the timing so that it hits on either side. Like,
and so we're sitting here watching the replay 6 or 7 times in a row, and we still don't know which way. It's like, Fudo, stop it.
I mean, Mika is maybe the first social media character ever in a fighting game. I mean, you can literally learn 3/4 of our Mika on Twitter. You just go to Twitter and someone has posted a new setup, and so if every one of these. Now, as a Marvel player, if I saw him activate, I would have held cross up immediately.
Okay.
Like, I would have been like, he's doing something dirty.
Yeah.
Like, I'm just gonna block one way. And that's actually one piece of advice I'll give players who are new to fighting crazy characters, is you want to commit to a direction.
Okay.
You want to say, I think he's gonna cross up, I think he's not going to cross up, and just hold it. Mm-hmm. Because the way these setups work, if you wiggle the stick, it doesn't matter if you guessed right, he probably hit you in the middle of that wiggle.
Okay.
So you have a higher % chance just guessing than you do
trying to react. That doesn't work in 5 at all? The wiggle to try to catch it?
No, you should guess 100% on setups like this, because it's unless you know for a fact what's going to happen, you should guess.
John, Hit me with this last disrespectful highlight that you sent me here, man.
So this one is this is the dunks, right? And we have Phenom taking on Daigo. Usually when we're talking about Daigo and corner pressure and amazing happenings, it's Daigo doing like 3 uppercuts from standing and things like that, doing ume shoryus and such. But we actually have Phenom being the dominant one here. And the highlight within this highlight is definitely the fact that he gets Daigo with not 1, not 2, but 3 command grabs in a row for the stun. To do something like that to someone like, or is it 3, right?
It's 3, yeah. Into a kill combo.
And so here's the thing about Necalli's kind of frame data in the corner with command grabs. If you do fierce command grab, then you can follow that up with a light command grab, and that'll beat 3-frame moves. So that's great. But after that, you're not at advantage by any means with after you do that light one. And you can still continue to follow up, but you need to like take a half step forward and kind of carry a command grab. The fact that Phenom was able to identify that Daigo, of all people, was in basically down back mode. He was in that defensive gear. This is again a high stakes situation, and you're playing Daigo, and still he had all of his wits about him, and he was able to not only scare Daigo, but identify that Daigo was scared and just go for the jugular, making the beast of all people look kind of not that great. So my hat's off to Phenom for being able to do that. I believe that he did deserve to win this tournament, and it was through sequences like that he proved that to us.
I've never met Daigo, but Steve, one quick comment here, but I wonder if Daigo ever thinks to himself, how dare you do this to me? I'm Daigo. 3 of those in a row? Steve, you were going to say.
He seems like a pretty chill guy. But I bet you Daigo's watching tapes, and I'm hoping to see like a 1st to 10 where Daigo just styles on Phenom with like no mercy whatsoever.
I think this sequence is just one of the reasons, one of the things that impressed me all weekend with Phenom. You see a lot of players, they play a big name player like a Daigo, like a Momochi, and they show them so much respect. They don't take a risk. They don't want to make the big move that could lead to huge damage. Phenom's like, okay, I don't care what you want to do. You're not going to push me off my best options. You're not going to make me stop command grabbing. You're not going to make me stop DPing. You're not going to make me stop hitting buttons. I'm going to do what I want to do, and you're the one who has to adapt to my style. I'm not going to adapt to yours. That is why he won. That's why he was so impressive this weekend.
Gentlemen, I think that brings us to the end of our CPT recap. Thank you for the robust recap. All right, I wanted to talk about something, and I'm going to have Will run this clip here in a second. The Bud Light All-Stars, it was a bit controversial in that they just banned alcoholic sponsors, but this one seemed to have gone through, and with the full blessing of Capcom. But if you've been following it, you know that FChamp won. He is the Bud Light All-Star for for Street Fighter, and this clip on Twitter cracked me up. Will, if you could play it, please.
Being on yachts, mansions, driving. What kind of car did you drive this morning?
Oh, I think I was a McLaren. I'm not really a car guy, but I know it feels expensive.
If you are not a car guy and you want me to drive that McLaren for you the rest of the day, I'd be happy to take it off your hands.
Yeah, go ahead. I don't want to pay for the insurance, but I guess I'm covered by Geico anyway, so.
Oh, okay.
Again, I think we're entering a new era. I know John and Steve, you guys probably couldn't hear that, but it's him saying that he's covered by Geico, this, that, and he totally snuck it in, very sly. If you were following it too, we had him in his McLaren. This is his the FChamp McLaren. This is FChamp on a boat. Seems pretty cool. This is him hanging out with Amaz and some other guys. I think I probably should have scaled this image a little better. Hilarious. I think it's hysterical. Thank you, Will. The fact that that's a big step into esports. Now, shout-outs to him. Congrats to him for getting that. The card looked amazing. That sly-ass Geico Gaming reference was pretty good. Do you guys have any thoughts on the fact that Bud Light had such a large presence in this, considering what has just happened in the Capcom Pro Tour rule change?
Well, I'm not surprised at all, and I think it just proves exactly what everyone thought, which was that the alcohol rules change was a, Twitch reaction to people freaking out about the porn ban.
Mm-hmm.
And clearly this had probably been talked about previous to that, and, alcohol wasn't thought to be a big deal for Capcom in the first place until, they did it as a reaction to the freakout.
Mm-hmm.
So it doesn't surprise me whatsoever. I think it does look bad, because obviously the inconsistency, Bud Light, by all accounts, is an alcohol sponsor. It directly goes against what they said a week or two ago. Why this? Why now? Who gets in there? How much do you have to pay? Mm-hmm. It just doesn't look consistent. It doesn't look good, and it goes exactly against what everyone wants them to do, which is just be forward with what's going on.
I'm glad that they did let it go through. If you guys were following this...
But I am definitely glad.
On Reddit, on our Street Fighter, which, by the way, is one of the best FGC subreddits, in my opinion, Hans has been responding to some questions there, including... responding to this. If I'm not mistaken, what I read, Hans himself was the one that greenlit this and let it go forward, and again, he's been responding on that subreddit. Inconsistent in that it seems to contradict what they did with the rule set. And speaking of inconsistencies, there was another one that was pretty blatant and maybe probably causing some people some headaches and maybe a little heartburn, which is this whole 8 frames thing. I get it. We've been talking about this for weeks. We thought it was over. We had somebody officially from the on a Japanese stream. Steve, do you want to set this up for us? You can probably do it better than I can.
All right. Well, one of the Japanese developers was being interviewed by Mago and a couple other Topanga guys, and he said, in essence, that they intended the 8 frame, that they intended the lag, that they implemented the lag intentionally to help smooth things over between offline and online play. Then a couple days later, excuse me, a couple days later, Combo Fiend comes back, says, no, it wasn't intentional, no. And then right after he says that, Team Spooky, who was the one who translated the original interview, came out and said, look, I had 3 Japanese speakers look at this. 2 of them have no connection to the FGC whatsoever. They all came back with the same translation that it was intentional. So you have this disconnect again between Capcom US and Capcom Japan, and it's just creating so much doubt into people's minds about, can they fix the problems in the game when they can't even agree what the problems are?
There you go. That would be, I'm telling you, that's probably causing some people some heartburn. We'll have to wait and see how that plays out.
Part of the big issue is that he had the outright, I don't know if I want to use the word audacity to doubt the translator's translation.
Yeah.
That really does not look good.
I like Cobbafine. I've had the opportunity to work with him in the past from Evo. He's always been easy to work with for the most part, but recently it feels like they need to get on the same page before they start working with media again. I'm not sure. Good luck to them.
The only thing I could say is that there's a possibility that they could be talking about 2 different things. Where Combo Fiend is correct in saying that the 8 frames isn't intentional, but the Japanese developer was talking more about input buffer as opposed to the 8 frames. Although in the context of the conversation, it does sound more like he was talking about the 8 frames than the input buffer. But maybe he misspoke. I don't know. The bottom line is that, once again, the left hand doesn't know what the right one is doing, and it's just a mess of PR for a game that has so many PR messes already.
Yeah, and as someone who does not mind the 8 frames issue nearly as much as a lot of other people and thinks it's a lot smaller of a deal, I think at this point they should use this as an opportunity to fix it, regardless of whether it was intentional or not, because as Steve said, the press from it at this point is just getting so bad at their own target demographic. If you don't have that, where are you going to get anyone else?
Mike and Murdoch here in the chat says, play Guilty Gear. Speaking of other games, let's wrap up our panel here before we bring on our guests by talking about some of these price bursts for Evo. Steve, would you be so kind?
Well, just yesterday, but Warner Brothers and NetherRealm announced that they were again throwing $50,000 in the form of a pop bonus to Evo 2016. So this is yet another big money tournament for Mortal Kombat. You look at some of the biggest prizes ever awarded in fighting game history. Yes, at the top you do see Capcom Cup, but right up there you've got ESL Season 1, ESL Season 2, Season 3, EVO 2015, and now EVO 2016. So you see their strategy of putting more big money in these big time events and hoping that gets more attention. And they weren't the only ones to put big money forward. Microsoft did that just as we were going off the air last week.
That's right.
They announced a KI Ultra Tour, which appears to be an expanded version of the KI World Cup. It will include the World Cup. It will include EVO. It will include additional online events that will be determined and announced later. But the big news from that is the total prize pool for that is now $100,000. So if you're thinking about picking up KI, now's the time to do it.
What I like about that is it's like a case of if you build it, they will come. And we know guys like Brandon and others. He got a ton of support. I won't name names, but a lot of people who get paid good money to do this helped them out pro bono. And it was a testament to the desire to show KI some love. And as a result, now we're seeing it kind of pay off. It's also surprising that it's this late in that game's lifespan that it's getting that, at least to me, Season 3, and now it's getting all that love.
Well, yeah, I mean, the game came out under a different developer. I believe it was Double Helix at the time. It was almost a completely different game in a lot of ways and just adapted into what it is now. And now that it's more respected and more a part of the community, I mean, yeah, the praise, the money, the love is coming. And I think that's a good thing.
Gentlemen,
I'm learning the game.
This guy's telling me, hey, I'm going to go play some Killer Instinct tonight. Anyway, we'll have to wait and see. You were telling me something interesting about top 8s in Killer Instinct. Who's telling me that? Was that you?
The game definitely is at this point, underrepresented for the amount of money it has. And while the players at the top of Killer Instinct are very, very good at Killer Instinct, there's a lot of open room for people to come and grab money in that game. And I think you're going to start seeing it. Because I know, Justin and F-Champ and PR-Rog all played the game and did very well at it.
Chris G.
Early on. Chris G as well. Very big names played very well at it early on. As the game developed, they dropped out because you saw the same thing with Mortal Kombat. You see the same thing with plenty of games. I think
I would recommend, I would recommend if you're looking to get paid playing fighting games, do it now because I'm honestly worried about Capcom Cup next year. I don't think it's going to be another $500,000 event.
I think you're getting ahead of yourself. We'll have to wait and see. I get it that there's a lot of bad press. I don't think that'll be the case.
We'll talk about that later.
June 21st, best of 3. Difference of opinions. We'll have to wait and see who's right. John, CEOs this weekend. Unfortunately, you won't be there, but what did we miss? Did we forget to talk about anything, John?
No, I think for the most part we're good. CEO looks to be one of the like always one of the biggest tournaments of the year. Interesting thing though, Smash 4 has I think over 100 more entrants than Street Fighter 5, which is kind of an interesting thing for a tournament like CEO. We think of it, primarily we were like, oh, it's the like Street Fighter has been the main game for forever, but hey, Smash 4 coming in hot and showing that it really it's there.
Here's the thing about Smash. And Steve, you can talk first because I'm probably going to rant.
No, you can go ahead. You can go ahead.
Here's the thing about Smash, which is that local tournaments for new Smash games are a world of their own.
Okay.
And I mean this very seriously. If you go to any semi-major city, there is a 50-man plus Smash weekly. Like 100% of the time. And a lot of these people won't travel. They won't play the game that seriously, but they go to the Smash tournament, they interact, they play their game. If you, as a tournament organizer, are willing to let them take over your giant space, they will come. I promise you. Any FGC tournament can do this. As long as you're willing to let them do their thing and give them the space to do it, Smash 4 is going to have gigantic numbers.
I've been to Texas tournaments where they literally split them up into 2 different ballrooms or areas of the hotel or whatever the case may be. And the FGC part, granted there's more games represented in that room, is bumping, and then it's crickets in the other room.
That's because they didn't do it right, and Jabali did it right.
All right, well, then we'll see. Jabali will have to take a page from that book. Gentlemen, we've come to the end of the panel. Steve, wrap it up for us, would you?
Here's what I'm wondering about this weekend. If you think back to Final Round, and all of the fallout about Jabali going public with the complaints, with the issues about that tournament, there is going to be such a huge spotlight on him to deliver a great experience this weekend. He's done it in the past. He's got plenty of staff with him that have done it in the past. Combo Breaker, a lot of common staff between the two events, and Combo Breaker was one of the best run events ever. But if there are any problems this weekend, you are certainly going to hear it from various corners of the internet. And I hope we don't have that discussion, but it'll be interesting to see if we do have to have that discussion.
All right, gentlemen, thank you very much as always for helping us recap the news and recap the CPT. We'll see you next week. John, Steve, thanks.
Right.
I'll see you guys Friday.
All right, we're looking forward to that. We're going to cut to a quick video while we get F-Word and Logan Sama on the line. This video was shot at DreamHack. Took me a while to cut it, but it's ready to go now. And it's about the pros and cons of being a sponsored player. What is the best thing about being a sponsored player?
The best part is you feel empowered. That's number one.
The best thing would be being able to travel.
2, I get to rock a really cool jersey.
My favorite thing about being a sponsored player is probably the support from the team, Team Liquid. They're really supportive. My manager's actually behind the camera right now, and yeah, I just love the support I get from my team. It's awesome.
My favorite thing about being a sponsored player is being able to be basically a spokesman for the fighting game community, you know?
The best thing about being a sponsor is that, not having to stress about the basic stuff that a player usually stress about, like, their entry fee, your travel. You don't have to think about that. On top of that, they make everything easier for you because, like the little things, like they give you your drinks, your food, so you don't have to worry about that. You can only focus on the most important thing, which is performing well in a big event.
Since the fighting game community is such a niched environment, I get to go to these other environments, and I'm like, yeah, I play Street Fighter. Have you ever played it? Do you want to try it? And I show what I like to do in Street Fighter, and I inspire people to play it also, and also inspire them to play with the same characters I play with. And once they start playing my character, they understand the struggles and the ups and downs, and it's just so interesting. It's so interesting seeing people figure out the things that I know.
What is your least favorite thing so far of being a sponsored player?
Least favorite things, these interviews, man. No, I'm just kidding.
The worst thing would be probably the pressure.
I don't think I have any least favorite. I think it's all benefits, honestly. I love it.
I don't think I don't think there's anything.
Actually, it depends. A lot of deals are different about being sponsors, so I don't know. About for myself, I don't really hate anything for my sponsors. But, I know a lot of deals out there for other esports teams that they have restrictions. Like, they can't do these interviews unless they get a go signal that they can do interviews. They can't do commercials. They have to ask permission when they stream. They can't attend, like, for instance, a Red Bull Kumite, for instance, right? Like, if I'm sponsored by, let's say, Monster Energy Drink, I can't attend those things. Those are the only things that sucks about being sponsored. But everything else is always good.
Welcome back to the show. I hope you enjoyed that quick video about the pros and cons of being a sponsored player. The takeaway is it doesn't suck to be sponsored.
Definitely not.
And now we are joined by none other than Logan Sama and F-Word, whose real name is Femi. And thank you guys for joining us. Logan, can you hear us?
I can hear you loud and clear. Thank you very much.
Femi, can you hear us?
Yeah, I'm good, man. How you guys doing?
Hey, we're doing great. First of all, thank you so much for joining us on the show. I know you guys probably had a pretty packed weekend, and Logan, you're coming off of another stream yourself from the UK Capcom channel.
That's correct.
Well, but we still appreciate you taking the time. We're going to talk about a couple of things. One, of course, is DreamHack and your takeaways and opinions on some of the players and the action there. But why don't we kick off by starting, tell me a little bit about the Capcom stream. I see you there every Tuesday. We get to see you guys with, you guys had Guile early, you guys have Ibuki early, making the rest of us jealous. What exactly is it that you guys get to do there every Tuesday, and in what capacity do you work with them?
So I started out in the FGC pretty late, like I'm not even 09er, I think. Like we kind of started doing Winner Stays On as a weekly tournament in London in 2010. At a place called Gamer Base, which is like a LAN kind of console-based thing. And unfortunately, the company that owned that went into administration, and the venue was closed down. So we didn't have any like regular events going on in the UK for probably about 2 years, which obviously drastically reduces the ability of the players to maintain that that competitive level. So when we got a community manager here in the UK, I proposed to him that we do a live stream from the office, because they've got like a nice spacious games room. They have the equipment to do that. And we started broadcasting probably about 1.5 years ago, just weekly stuff. And the aim was to get the players to really showcase their skills in like longer sets online, and hopefully through the Capcom Fighters Twitch channel, we'd provide a bit more profile on some of these players that are doing stuff here in the UK and across Europe, which otherwise might not really get seen on the smaller stream channels that we have here in the UK.
Well, that's great, and certainly it doesn't hurt that you and F-Word have kind of gained a reputation for being. I mean, I don't think I've heard of anybody getting as much universal love as these guys for commentary. A lot of people have very strong opinions on commentary and commentary duos and who's good and who isn't, but you guys seem to get a lot of love. Do you feel that?
Absolutely. I think it's been a while now, as Logan just mentioned. We started off in a tiny little area in Gamerbase as players primarily, and from then I've been doing like casual commentary, and to think where we were then and to see where we are now, and also like when you just look at the region of the people who tweet you, who message you, it's literally all over the world. I was watching a Brazilian stream and I heard these guys literally shout me out and say some of the stupid things I say on the mic. It really just brought it home. Like, when you hear a Brazilian guy saying rago to a DP at an event, you're just like, these guys know that? Like, what is going on? So yeah, absolutely. I feel it immensely, and I feel very lucky to be a part of that. Alongside Logan.
Rago's one of them. Oh My Days, I think, is another one of them. Ryan Hart, I can't even do it right, even though I've practiced it before.
Yeah.
Where do you get the inspiration for that F-word? Where do those come from, man?
A lot of it's just English slang. I mean, I didn't make up Rago. I mean, if you talk to anyone from London, Logan will tell you he works in the grime scene. It's a very old slang term that isn't even used that much these days by the younger generation. But in my day, when I was 13, 14, 15 growing up, it was like one of the most common things you'd say. You drop a bit of food on the floor and the kid picks it up and eats it and he says rago. It's like, they just say it, and it just me being me. The great thing about the FGC is because I grew up with it, I'm just me when I'm on the mic. So a lot of those things that I say when I'm talking to my friends just comes out. And oh my days, if you watch any, British, reality TV show or anything like that, you'll hear oh my days 1,000 times. It's not even universal to like urban slang. It's just a very common, free word statement that people who are British tend to say.
There's a rapper from Birmingham who actually made a tune called "Oh My Days" that came out this year as well. So it's just
really
it's just a part of. To be honest, it's been happening for a while as well. Like it's not just F-word, although like he's the most known, but like a lot of the slang and the phrases and stuff that we were using on our Winner Stays On streams, like in 2010, 2012 sort of times, even when we were doing the Marvel tournaments, a lot of that stuff got picked up as well, because it's just like a cool culture that we have here, and people pick up on it, and the energy and the banter. Like that's the cool thing about London. Like we've got the banter and the character and charisma, and it seems to get across. Myself and F-word have been commentating together like for a while now, like over 5 years at large events, and mainly. We started out doing DreamHack together for the larger scale events, and I think that's really what's got us out there. So it's nice to sort of come full circle and talk to you guys about DreamHack today.
And we're about to get to DreamHack, but you guys both commentate with different people, not just with each other. Why is it that people put you two guys together and like you guys two together, in your estimation?
I think it's a good blend, really. I think I've done commentary rotation alongside Logan, a good friend of mine, Zaid. For a long time, myself and Zaid were like the natural, like, you know, pairing. And I think just over time, as, you know, Logan really started getting more into commentary as well, there was just like an unspoken, like an unannounced synergy there that it just kind of happened, where people were like, holy crap, these guys just gel. And you know what? I honestly think, and Logan may disagree, but I honestly think the Gandhi moment really, really changed everything, man. I feel like that was a pivotal moment for us, because it was me and Logan. You know, I think Zach had just literally jumped off. Me and Logan were sitting there. This crazy player comes on, Logan, right? You remember? And it just went from there.
This is the Ryu that kept doing uppercuts on a Rufus, if I'm not mistaken, right?
The wake-up throw. The wake-up throw was...
yeah, that Ryu,
Yeah, man. Like, that really went viral, and I think people saw that I think people saw that we were having fun with it, and you know, we came through as 09ers in terms of SF4. I know F-Word's been around the FGC before that, but like getting involved in streams, we've always been big fans of, you know, guys like Chris Hugh, guys like Yikes. I love Lee Chung as well. Got like those charismatic guys that we can enjoy. You know, Z, I enjoy his stuff as well. So like people always like watching commentators that look like they're having fun as well. And I feel like, especially when we talk to like the top players and people involved sort of hands-on in the community, more so than the viewers, they love the fact that it's such a good balance between insightful stuff and actually breaking down what's going on, but also that back and forth, the fun, the energy. Like, we sound like we're enjoying it, and I think that's really important when you're commentating, because if you have, you know, a commentary pairing that don't sound like they're excited about what they're watching, why would you be excited by it as a viewer?
Go ahead.
Well, and bringing that to DreamHack, obviously the first DreamHack in America was here in Austin, and there's DreamHack over there. It's been more known as a tournament for other esports games. Obviously, fighting games are kind of the underdog. How do you feel the reception was to Street Fighter this year as compared to years past? And then do you feel any, you know, personal need to make it more important at DreamHack as the commentators for it?
Logan?
I would say it's an interesting one, because it's kind of like a double-edged sword. People have always been traveling to DreamHack as an event because they've got such good prize support. You know, I remember, I think in 2012, the prize pot for DreamHack Winter was actually bigger than the prize pot for Evo that year. So we've always had people traveling, and that goes for, you know, guys like Xian, who was like 17 years old playing Dalsim. We had Infiltration. He would come through with Laugh when they were still traveling together, unsponsored, and come through and sort of sleep on the floor and just travel through. So it's been a long while. It's been there since pretty much day one, and they've always had like great corporate partners. Energizer have backed it for many, many years. They had BenQ Zowie this year as well. And I think with the Capcom Pro Tour now as well, it's just attracted a larger number of top pro players. So when we saw maybe at 2 or 3 Infiltration, Xian, maybe a Gamer B or what have you, and then the cream of Europe, this year we had, you know, 9 top Japanese players attending alongside Xian, plus a lot of the European community. So the Capcom Pro Tour has really sort of increased the profile of all of these premier events. But then on the downside, to get to DreamHack's really expensive in terms of staying there, because Sweden, like many of the Nordic countries, their cost of living is like incredibly high. So to get your hotels, to eat, the transport, like we got a 5-minute cab ride that cost, I'm trying to do the maths. 5-minute cab ride. It cost about $50.
Goodness.
Which was insane. And the hotels sell out. So it's really, really difficult to get to and really expensive. So for a lot of the Europeans now, because there's so many more events on the Capcom Pro Tour, a lot of them prioritize some of the smaller ranking events. So there was less of an attendance. And I think Ryan Hart even mentioned this on his interview with, I think it was Yahoo Esports, that he was kind of disappointed to see not so many Europeans there in attendance in terms of like, the professional players, because a lot of them are prioritizing some of the ranking events in a strategic move in order to accrue as many points as possible. And of course, when you're a self-funded player, you have a limited, budget for resources for travel and accom, and also, holiday days you can take from work because, of course, you need Fridays to travel and Mondays to travel back. So a lot of people didn't come this year to DreamHack, which is a shame.
Yeah, but you still had some top talent.
Sorry.
I'm sorry, go ahead, F-word.
I was just going to quickly extend, I know this topic has gone on a while. I'll be very quick. Just to add to what Logan's saying, my personal view is if I'm being brutally honest, it's disappointment with the European scene for something like DreamHack. I know Steve was on earlier saying that he felt like it was, it wasn't all an upside for Europe because there was still 6 Japanese players in the top 8. But when you actually look at the damage the European players who were there did,
yeah,
we saw Poppy eliminate Reiketsu. We saw Ryan send Momochi to losers. MOV was eliminated. Kyungster took out Itazan and another solid Japanese player. We took out a lot of solid Japanese players before they got to that. But there was only about 10 top European well-known players there, which is just unheard of. You put an event like this in the middle of nowhere in the United States, I'd be very surprised if with a prize pool like that and that kind of caliber of player, no matter how unremote the location is, I'd be very surprised if only 10 of the top American players or the most well-known American players actually turned up. I was really, really surprised to see such a shortage of top European players there. And had there been that many, doesn't necessarily mean the result would have been different. We saw Stunfest just a few weeks ago, and we had almost everyone in Europe there, and we got blown up. But still, I think for the fact that we're very lucky that DreamHack put such emphasis on the FGC and on Street Fighter in particular. And I think we really need to show appreciation for that and just do what you can to get down. It's easier said than done, but I definitely want to see more numbers than that for an event that amazing next time around.
You guys seemed pretty excited, though, at the end of the day, that a European player took it. Talk to me a little bit about that, guys. Let's just take it from there. A European player did, in fact, take this Capcom Pro Tour event in a very stacked top 8.
And I'd like to add to that, how do you feel about the somewhat negative reception that has come as a result of that?
Well, I'm just going to be brutally honest here. This is just a stigma that's attached to a player that's not, the typical top tier looking player. He's not of Asian descent. He's really young. He's come out of nowhere for most people, and he's outsmarted one of the most well-known, probably one of my favorite Japanese players. I honestly feel like Eita plays almost exactly the same, but not as effective. Eita is probably the most messy Ken out there. Very good Ken, but he will DP 1 in 2, 1 in 3 wake ups, and he will block it and punish him for 50%, and he'll do it again. And I feel like he's had a lot of success doing that. And the only person to blame, really, for how crazy that set was Fudo, because it was an adaptation from Phenom. He did blatantly wait a few times, and he saw that Fudo was still going for meaties every time. Away from the negative response, I don't want to talk too much about that because I feel it's a bit unfair. Phenom seriously outsmarted his opponent in that finals. He saw the stubbornness and capitalized on it. Just to see a European go through that amount of Japanese players hasn't happened for a while, not since Luffy Stunfest 2013. So I was really over the moon to see that, and I think it just reiterates that the gap maybe isn't as big right now as a lot of people assumed it was. I'll allow Logan to extend a little on that too.
I think you have to look at the results overall in the tournament. It's not like he won a one-off money match set doing random DPs. He beat Fudo twice because he beat him in winner's bracket. He beat Daigo as well. He went through, I think it was about 4 Japanese players on his way to the finals.
I could probably figure that out for you here because Steve had sent me that info. Give me a second while you guys keep talking here.
But it definitely wasn't random in terms of what he was doing. You might do a wake up. I mean, he got a random super against Daigo, which I'm pretty sure was a messed up input.
It was a DP. He said in the interview afterwards it was supposed to be a DP. Well, it would have hit.
Phenom beat Genius, Riketsu, Mago, Daigo, Fudo twice.
Of course, yes, Mago. So he switched as well, and he was very clever there as well. We just actually looked back at the Daigo match on Winner Stays On sessions tonight as well. He mentioned it as well. The character switched for the one game at 2-2. In both those sets against Daigo and Mago, he switched to his dictator, which is a much maligned character, and he saw a lot of success. We saw a lot of success with Dictator in Europe early on in the game's life, but I think as the game goes on, obviously people have worked out strategies to kind of deal with his always in your face plus pressure with V reversals. But you could see that both Mago and Daigo didn't really know how to handle that Dictator pressure. So I think they were both very clever calls, and you don't win a tournament by beating Raiketsu, Mago, Daigo, and Fudo twice with luck. That doesn't happen.
I think he might be one of the only players to win with two different characters at the top level, actually.
Mm-hmm.
Infiltration obviously did it with just one, with Nash and both of his premier events, and most ranking events have been won by single characters as well.
Mike, before the show, you were saying, though, that people who think that this guy is random or a bad player or playing careless don't have context for this guy's play in the past.
No, certainly not. Yes, he was absolutely a top SF4 player very early in his career and easily proved he's one of the smartest players out there. And I could talk for hours about why waking up with Jabber DP is a very, very smart decision.
You guys agree with that?
Absolutely. I mean, this guy was one game away from qualifying for last year's CPT. He's no slouch. He finished, I think, joint 17th at Evo in Street Fighter 4. He won a ranking event in, was it Italy, Logan? Just before this one?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, you know, I mean, it's not. He hasn't just come out of the blue.
Yeah, you're right. Before this, he was the #1 ranked player in Europe on the CPT points. So yeah, it's not like he's not achieving consistently. And like you said, I'd be honest with you, it slipped my mind. That was his first ever Evo he went to. He'd never been to Evo before, and he finished 17th, which is incredible for I think he was about 18 years old when he went last year, wasn't he?
I'll tell you now, I got joint 33rd at Evo, my first ever Evo, Logan. And as soon as it got to the stage where it was just me and a player and a crowd, I completely crumbled. And I was up against Alex Valle, and you know, I had the match, and I completely crumbled. To see a guy, how old? I think he was 17 or 18 when he went to Evo, to get that far and to be as relaxed as, and you could see by this guy's interviews, he's got a really strong mentality and mindset. He's very relaxed in these situations, and that, for me, that's the one reason why I'm always telling really good players to get off their butt and get down to the events, because that's probably the biggest challenge you're going to have, is overcoming those nerves and performing in front of people who are going to be, you know, judging your performance. Phenom just seemed unfazed. It's just remarkable for a kid that young.
Well, getting off the subject of DreamHack for a bit, I was wondering how, as two people in at least some proximity to Capcom, feel about the way SF5 has been handled publicly and the reception to the game and how they've talked about it in the recent, 8 frames incident with Combo Fiend and Capcom Japan.
Logan, we can only see you, so I'm looking right at you, man.
we see a smirk there.
I got in trouble recently for, ironically, because I got loads of crap online from people calling me a shill, but I actually got in trouble recently for criticizing. So I have to be very careful with what I say, because I try and be like straight up and down and say what I genuinely think, which means I can piss off both sides, the player base and the publisher. But I feel like it's clear now that there isn't a unified message going out there from Capcom as a company, because we the people don't view Capcom USA and Capcom Japan as separate entities. We just see Capcom. There's one logo, and they clearly don't seem to have a unified message going out. There's lots of contradictions, and the flow of information is just it's not good enough. I feel like, we'll accept a lot in the FGC. Like we'll accept a lot as long as you let us know and you're honest and direct with us, right? So we'll accommodate, we'll be understanding. If something's not ready to be implemented and it might take a couple more weeks, then that's fair enough. But like, if you don't tell anyone anything until the last minute, then of course people are going to be upset, especially if you're telling them bad news at the last minute. If you know something's not going to be ready, let them know, I guess, in advance. And now that we've got the internet and social media and there's so much more resources out there for people to understand, it's not like the 90s when you just went to the arcade and your whole experience and understanding was based within what happened in that room. There's so much information out there with people doing lag tests. There's people that can pull apart the code. There's a huge amount of journalism going on around the gaming industry as well. So people will give you insight into how the business side of things work and how marketing should be done. And, you know, people can have a way better grasp of how things should be done than years past. And I just feel like you need to catch up with the times, you know. And I don't think they've managed to do that. As much fun as the game is to play in a competitive format, because it is really fun still. I'm yet to see people sit down and play it in person, offline, and not enjoy their sets. Like that's definitely been the case. But there's so many other things around in 2016 that are needed to be done well for a game to be successful that need to be improved.
So, Logan, you're touching on it, and you said it, right? People play offline, they have fun. And recently, I think as of like just a couple days ago, you're seeing guys like L.I. Joe and Alex Valle saying, this is the game. We like this game. If you have issues with it, get better at the game, adapt to the game.
Justin said the same thing as well. I'm having a world of a time, he said. He was loving it. So.
Exactly. But as we all know, there's been a lot of negative press. Do you think that that's affecting the life of the game? And I bring that up because... of course, there could have been other factors, but the viewership at a premiere event with this much talent didn't get as high as some people expected. Now,
are you talking about DreamHack?
I'm talking back about DreamHack. Of course,
well,
you know,
there's a loads of obvious reasons why that's. To put it in context as well, from a different side, because obviously you guys are in the North American region and you're used to certain numbers. DreamHack Summer this year had a 90% increase on viewership than it had last year.
Okay.
So that's a huge success because it's nearly doubled in terms of the eyes that are on the actual event. But in terms of
that one, Logan, because that's DreamHack Summer wasn't a premiere last year, was it?
Well, no, I'm going to go through all the reasonings behind it. But you know, that's not like a complete failure. It's not like no one's watching it. Also, you have to take into account that as Top 8 was starting, I think it was like 10 a.m. in the morning on the West Coast, which is a considerable part of the viewership as well, because the West Coast events that do really, really well. We're not going to fool ourselves into thinking that the American viewing audience isn't the biggest part of this thing on Twitch anyway, because of course you've got other things like the Chinese viewership and Asian viewership that use Nico and whatever the other one is in China that they all watch. But in terms of Western viewership, the American audience is incredibly important. So we had two things. We had the time, which definitely is an issue, and also the fact that there were no prominent US players there as well to sort of promote it with their presence. So those two things add up, and you know you're gonna get lower than average views than you would for an American premiere event, which is a shame because we don't have that same sort of thing that they have in other esports of, you know, just a dedicated fans of the game, I guess. And it's kind of like you kind of have that sort of thing in other sports as well. You know, you might have a fantastic array of players involved, but if it's on an awkward time for people to watch, and it, you know, some of their favorite players that they may be more aware of are not involved, then, you know, I'll give you a correlation to football, or soccer as you might call it. The viewership in England for the European Championships, which are happening right now in France, compared to the viewership for the Copa America, which is happening in the States, the viewership there is going to be, you know, worlds apart, even though you have world-class players at both events. You know, you have Brazil and Argentina competing in the Copa America, some of the best teams in the world. But the viewership for that in the UK is going to be drastically lower than it is for the Euros for two reasons. You've got more familiar players at the Euros, and it's a more convenient time for us to watch. You know, the Copa America games are all on in the middle of the night mostly. So that it's the same pretty much in esports.
So you alluded to it earlier as well, Logan. I'm sorry to keep talking to you, but again, you're the only one whose face is moving here, and I'm gravitating towards it.
I want to see Femi's picture there. Like, I don't know. I'm trying to see what he's eating. Like, he looks like a nice burger and fries.
Coolest burger ever, man.
There it is. And it's funny.
I'm literally trying to get my camera sorted as we're speaking, but I don't think I'm going to crack it now. So.
But you can still tell us what you're eating in that picture.
I'm eating it's one of you guys. It's actually in Vegas.
when I went to Evo. It's one of you guys' burgers. What's the guy's name? Oh, I can't remember. I forgot.
Johnny
It was
Rocket?
great,
Looks
right?
like Johnny Rocket.
Johnny Rocket. Yes, it was Johnny Rocket. Thank you.
Duncan knows
Johnny
his food,
Rocket's
man. He
on
knows
the
his food
strip.
courts.
That was a good meal, man. That was a good meal. Yeah, sorry, Logan. Go ahead.
Well, I had a question for you guys, and this was again alluding to what Logan had said earlier that he got called a shill. I think you're referring to the tweet about people feeling entitled. We brought it up on this show. As the counter argument to people being upset. I'm like, hey, maybe you're expecting too much, right? What would you guys like to see happen with the community? Is it just like let's all get along and accept? Let's appreciate the difficulty of running a international company. I'll start with you, Efford. What do you think should happen?
I've got as a fan. Forget that I commentate the game. As a fan, I've got untold amount of tolerance for Capcom. They are by and large responsible for my love and my dedication to the FGC and where I am today. I could just name a few characters that they've turned into fighting game characters that have done that. However, if you just go and watch, if you go on YouTube and type in MKX story mode full, there's like 10 million views of people just watching the story mode on MKX. And I say this just as an example. It's such a big missed opportunity to not have things like that. And it's easy to say from the outside, but it's just such a huge missed opportunity to not have things like that ready in time. And just imagine if they'd have had something like that ready in a brand new Street Fighter. And with all due respect to MKX, more people know who Ryu and Ken are than they know who Sub-Zero is. The average nobody knows who Ryu and Ken are. You know, is that the Shoryuken guy? They know who they are. They don't have to be involved in the FGC. These are huge names. And I do feel like there's only so much tolerance the average fan is going to have. And, you know, I think it's good that people are open. We should try to be constructive in our criticism. But I think it's understandable that people are, you know, kind of like backlashing a little. And hopefully, you know, it's because they care about the game, to be honest with you. It's a good problem to have rather than no one talking about it at all. And hopefully it doesn't cost us in the end. I think there's still plenty of time to turn this around and make this the most successful Street Fighter ever.
Can I raise a point about MKX as well? Because, you know, this weekend, of course, MKX, the finals were at DreamHack as well. And Foxy Grandpa won another tournament to add to his collection. Just waiting for him to get that Sonic Fox scalp. It will come eventually. But I was talking to Foxy and the Ketchup and Mustard twins about how MKX funds their cups, and they told me that the entirety of a whole season of prize pool support was funded from one single skin.
The Sub-Zero skin?
Yeah, just one skin. And that has no in-game benefit at all. It's just a skin. So that's incredible to see that sort of support from the player base. And I know the game sold about 5 million copies compared to Street Fighters. I think it's just about on 2 now. But even then, you know, it's an incredible groundswell, and it's an established thing in esports to sell these sort of things and crowdfund these sort of things within the game from the community. And I just kind of feel like how Capcom have rolled out the costumes and the store, and now the Zenny store is not going to be up anymore and what have you. It's a real missed opportunity. And even down to things like, you know, doing like more customization in terms of character models. Like I love in Tekken how you can fully customize your character, and those sort of microtransactions are really where people will pour their money into the game.
Well, they had that in Street Fighter Cross Tekken though, didn't they?
They had like colors, but you couldn't like actually change like what you're wearing and items and that sort of stuff. And it's funny to see that Injustice 2 has now sort of pick that up in terms of the gear that they're making available. And I don't know what the model is for that, but it just shows you that, again, Warner Brothers seem to have their finger more on the pulse of what the paying customer is interested in. And Capcom, despite having I would argue, considerably larger IP in the Street Fighter franchise, is not making the most of it. And again, you know, people so interested in the backstory of Street Fighter, it's taken 30 years to get an actual story mode, and we still don't have it yet in the game. So I really feel like they could be doing more there, because we're so passionate about these characters. We've grown up with these characters. We want to know what's going on. And you see some of the cool artwork out there that Udon are doing for their comic series. You know, I want to see more of that. You know, we just want to see the game do well. We want the game to play well. We want more content. We want to get more invested in the game. Give us a reason to play the game for hours and hours a week and spend hundreds of dollars a year on it, rather than just that initial $60 and the season pass and what have you, and then that's it. Because people will happily spend money if you give them a good product and you give them a reason to do so.
Mm-hmm.
Esports, man.
Well, bringing it back to the EU briefly, one thing that interests me is how exactly it interacts. And what I mean by that is there much rivalry between different countries? Is this, you know, is it too small and so you have to come together as a group? Obviously, you're happy that someone from Europe won, even though it's not from your country. How does that dynamic work?
That's a good question. Yeah, you know, it's the typical Sigmund Freud theory, isn't it? You know, you've got an outside threat, and suddenly everyone within the inside, you know, ignore their differences and come together. It's the group theory. But yeah, to be honest with you, when there isn't that outside threat, there is a lot of rivalry in between the countries. Not so much as there was before. I remember in the 3S days, you know, the France versus UK was like so intense, and like people will be shouting at each other during the events, like aggressively trying to put the other person off when they're boys against them. But it's still there. You know, if you go to France now as a UK player and, you know, you're the only one left against the French, you will feel it. You will feel that intimidation as a UK player. It's not like we don't acknowledge these differences, just like you guys do with, I imagine, with East Coast and West Coast, but maybe even more so, because, you know, there's the language barrier, there's the neutral crowd as well, who will always support their locals. So, you know, don't be fooled by that unity we have when our back's against the wall and there's invaders from outside of Europe. When it's all on the line and it's just us, you see the allegiances, you see the differences, and to be honest with you, I think it's quite healthy to have that rivalry within the borders.
I think using the United States is a great example, because you have the main rival, which is always going to be, you know, West Coast, East Coast rivalry, which we all know about. And in the UK, in Europe, you have, you know, the UK against France is generally the main rivalry of the superpowers of Europe. But then you have different regions, and you go to the East Coast, you got Philly and New York. You go to the West Coast, NorCal, SoCal. And in the UK, we have, you know, scenes in Manchester, scenes in London, Birmingham, and Scottish scenes are really quite prevalent as well. So it's exactly the same as that. If you just look at Europe as, and probably the player base in terms of numbers is around about similar in terms of, you know, comparing it to the United States. It's exactly the same thing. We always want home turf to be defended, but we want one of ours to defend it as well. Same way, you guys, I'm sure you don't want to see an Asian player coming over and winning CEO. You'd like an American player to win, but wherever you're from or whatever community, you'd probably like to see your personal community represented more if possible. And
Logan, speaking of one of your guys, I've been following I'm Still the Daddy's Twitter.
I was going to bring that up.
He seems like he's chomping at the bit there for a money match with Phenom. How do you feel about that? He was on your stream today, wasn't he?
Yeah, we spoke to him about it. I'm Still the Daddy's a very interesting character, because him and the written word don't always mesh together perfectly well. Like, he can get salty, he can get worked up, and he'll let it out. And it used to be in the form of Xbox Live messages, and they were certainly a lot worse than his tweets were. But yeah, I mean, to be honest with you, he definitely is pleased with Phenom's success. And when it comes to him challenging people for money matches, it's more a thing of like he wants to pit himself against him. He did the same thing against F-Champ. He saw F-Champ completely body Wolfcrone in the Dalsim Laura matchup, and he wanted to test it out, and that's why he called out F-Champ for a money match to show him how it's done, sort of thing. So yeah, he's just competitive, and sometimes he says things that might not his words might get away from him a bit.
Who would win, him or Phenom?
I'm going to defend him a little bit here, actually, just because. Sorry, I'll get
to
that as well. Just because when he challenged F Champ, when he challenges Problem X, he does it to a lot of people. And when they say, "You're on, this is the amount, let's do it," that's kind of the end of it. And he holds his word. He shows up to whatever event it is. He has his cash in hand. He plugs his pad in, and win, lose or draw, he'll shake your hand and he'll walk on. We saw it with the Smug Money match as well. There was a really controversial moment in that, but he shook his hand. He moved on with it. That's the kind of guy he is. It's the fact that Phenom is not accepting it that is really grinding him. It's kind of like, what? Listen, let's do this, but Phenom's not accepting it. So I feel like that whole conversation could have ended a lot quicker. But yeah, I'm still the daddy's then gone on to provoke him a little bit. But it's all because he really wants to match. He's a very competitive guy. Is the only thing I'd say about that.
And now tell me who you think would win.
You know what? I'd need to see how well Phenom knows the Gal matchup. But I'm still the daddy was extremely unlucky this weekend. He literally took both the Asian players he played to the very edge, and I feel like he had both matches won, and just a couple of decisions, a couple of execution errors cost him. I really do feel like his Gal is so new and fresh that if I was a betting man, I might take the gutsy bet and go with Amsterdam Daddy in a short set.
There you go. You heard it there. It's on the record now. Logan, you feel the same?
Amsterdam Daddy's got such an awkward play style to deal with, and he's really very emotional in how he plays as well. Sometimes he makes bad decisions and it can cost him, but I was watching him play today and over the weekend, and he seems to be a lot more composed in his play style now. He just had a couple of drops. I know I don't want to make any excuses for him or his results, but he did lose he lost his pad and had to sort of borrow a pad, and that does make a difference to pad players. Apparently, I don't know, so I've never been one, but he had to use a loaner. But yeah, his style's a lot different now in terms of the decision making. Seems to be a lot more calm and collective, and we'd spoken to him about it a number of times over the last year. But it'll be an interesting one because the Phenom himself is a very unique play style. He's very stubborn as well. So it'll be cool to see. I really like Amsterdam Daddy's Guile. I think it's up there. I think Chris G is probably right now the best Guile in the world, but Amsterdam Daddy is really coming on leaps and bounds, and I'm really happy that we have him here in the country using the character, because the more high-level players we have being character specialists, the better it is for us in terms of experience.
All right, a couple more quick ones before we let you go.
No worries.
We saw Mr. Crimson take the first CPT event, and we've seen Phenom come out early on his SF4 and SF5 career and do well. Is there anyone not as well known in Europe that you think is on the up and up?
That's a
Pax
question.
is at CEO. Pax is at CEO this weekend, mate. Look out for Pax at CEO this weekend.
And where is he from, and who does he use?
He's from London. He uses Currin, and he has a ton of tech. He's a veritable encyclopedia of knowledge on the game. And this year, he started traveling a lot more, and he's working on his, like F-Word said, those sort of tournament nerves, being able to do everything you can do on that big stage. He had a real heartbreaking moment against Xian, to qualify for top 8 at Stunfest, to become the first European ever to qualify for a top 8 in the Capcom Pro Tour this year.
He took the first game in a breeze.
He took the first game in an absolute breeze. It was a complete walk. They had the famous power outage, which caused them to have a really, really long wait. And then he had Tenko juggle into Super to take the game, and he dropped the combo. And he went on to lose, and he finished 9th at Premier Event, which is still an incredible result, but he's definitely not happy with that, and he's going to be going to CEO with a load of fire in his belly.
Just to say on that, he took out Gamer B, RB,
he made Gamer
Dogora.
B look
took out a load of Asian players on his way to that match with Shen, and honestly, it looked hopeless for Shen after that first game. I think, I love Shen, and Shen knows I love him. He's my guy, but I really felt that power cut was a big turning point in that set, because the first game was so one-sided, and then Shen sat down, composed himself, and brought it back.
Wow. Femi, do you have any picks? People we should be on the lookout for?
Yeah, I mean, you guys obviously know about Problem X. He's well known, or he's already qualified once. But I think this year, if this guy can get out more, and if he can work on his defense, I think he could trouble just about anyone. I'm going to say another UK guy. I'm going to say Hurricane. Very similar with Tupac. Really, really strong going forward. Very great reactions. Punishes you for things you didn't think were punishable. He plays Cammy, and his Cammy just gets better every time I see it. It's just a case of him working on those decisions when he's at negative frames. Once he can really nail those decisions and deal with that pressure better, and if he can get out to enough events, I think he could really be a surprise package in this tour as well.
Well, gentlemen, I only have one more question for you, and it is, where can we see you next? Where are you commentating next?
I haven't even thought about that, actually. What's the next one? Oh, well, I guess I should say now that I'm not making Evo. That's something I've been trying to sort out this year.
That's a shame.
Yeah, I'm really disappointed. I think I want to take this opportunity to thank everyone who's been pushing and tweeting, and the amount of support has just been like so flattering, and I really did try to make it happen. The circumstances were just unforeseeable. It got to the stage where I was trying to fork out as much money as I could myself, but thanks to all the support from everyone on Twitter, I received messages from the organisers. We tried to organise it. It's not going to happen this year, unfortunately, but I think my next one will be EGX. I think that's in September, Logan, right? When is that?
That is indeed in September. That's the next premier event in Europe.
Yeah, but I just want to, while I'm here, I just want to say really thank you to everyone, because when I got that message in my inbox, I never saw that coming. And that's just because everyone's been saying, you guys get this guy to Evo. So I'm really flattered, and I'm sorry I can't make it this year, but I'm going to make it up to you guys next year for sure.
Well, that's a shame to hear, Femi. I know a lot of people were definitely looking forward to anytime you guys are commentating together, I think people look forward to it. Logan, how about yourself, man?
I am going to be going to Evo. I'm not there to work, though, just there as I am every year to take in the atmosphere and enjoy it, and sit at the front line, hopefully sitting in the front row in the Mandalay Bay Arena, screaming and cheering on a European winner at Evo again once more.
But where will you be DJing next?
Where am I? Let's have a look.
For anybody who doesn't know, you're an accomplished DJ.
Yeah, I just got confirmed for a monthly show on BBC Radio 1.
Oh, wow. Congratulations, man.
So, awesome. Yeah, that starts next month.
Established is an understatement. Logan is very humble about his career. He doesn't seem to like to mix the two, which is understandable, but he is the top 2 DJ in the UK, pretty much in Europe, maybe the world, for his genre of DJing. So, I'll big him up, because I know he's quite humble, but he's done well for himself. Henceforth, he can afford to fly himself to Evo at will every year. But well done to him. He'll understate it, but he's done well for himself.
Logan, we wouldn't have known that if it wouldn't have been for Femi, or if we wouldn't, fall in the scene. So shout outs to Efford for giving you those props.
No problem.
Logan and Femi, thank you guys so much for coming on the show. It means a lot. I'm glad we were able to set that up and be able to hear from you. One thing that we've noticed here on the show is that if somebody's actually been at the event, you can just speak about it more on more authority. So we were glad that we could talk to you about DreamHack, but to my surprise, it was a lovely conversation to get to know you guys better. So thank you for that.
Thanks for the opportunity. Really enjoyed it. Sorry about my camera, by the way.
I think you're going to be another meme, Femi. There's another one.
I'm dressed up, man. Listen, I've got my Mad Cats, my old sponsored Western Wolf shirt on. I was looking to show off, man. It just weren't happening, man.
Maybe next time. You can send us a picture. Tweet it at us.
You know what? I will. I'll do a selfie now, and I'll tweet at you guys right now.
All right, guys. Well, thank you so much, and hopefully we can talk to you again in the future.
Yeah, man. Thanks very much for inviting us on. It's a pleasure. Obviously, it's kind of late for us here, and I hope we've been awake enough and forthcoming enough for you guys, and enjoyed it. But yeah, thank you very much. Definitely enjoy what you guys have done as well. And I just wanted to say, has anyone told you, Danka, that you sound uncannily like TJ Miller?
I haven't heard that one, but you know what? I'll have to give him a listen.
Jonas Brother, TJ Miller, he's got a lot.
Magnus Carlsen, the chess champion. You know, there's a lot of.
TJ Miller. I think I can hear that one, Logan. I see that.
The guy in Deadpool.
In Silicon Valley, yeah.
Yeah.
I'll second that.
Get that out there, man, because it's just every time I hear you on commentary or anything, it's eerie. It's eerie.
All right, guys. And on that note, I think we'll wrap it up again. Thank you so much for joining us. And again, what you got? Wait. The classic Danka option select. He has more to say, so go for it.
This is just about, you know, DPs and jabs. And
stick around for this, guys.
You know, Street Fighter is in many ways the most fundamental fighting game.
Okay.
But as a result of that, you know, your wake-up options are more limited than in other games, especially now in Street Fighter V that you don't have FADC, that you don't have this, you know, etc. You're pretty much boiled down to waking up with a button, an invincible move, or blocking. You don't get rewarded that hard for blocking. Characters have plus frames, characters have 50-50s, characters have a whole bunch of stuff. The idea of waking up with a DP to punish them for doing a meaty, or a jab to punishing them for not, is honestly, in a lot of ways, the optimal way to play the game. And you saw Kazunoko win with that at Capcom Cup. You saw Phenom win with that this year. That's not random. That's having a read on the opponent and using it to your advantage. And that's just absolutely the best way to play the game. And if you feel that you have any leaning towards what they're going to do, I really think you should DP or jab most of the time.
I'm sorry. All I could think was TJ Miller, man. I'm sorry.
Well, maybe I'll get TJ Miller to talk about Street Fighter instead of me.
Just kidding. No, that's something to keep in mind, guys. You guys agree with that? Before we let you go for real this time?
Yeah, absolutely. And on the flip side, keep in mind the people attacking you. This game really restricts what your meaty options are for most of the characters. So the guys attacking you aren't always going to be as on point as like Fudo and Phenom were on each other's wake-ups. They're not always going to have that meaty down. They may have even chosen to do a meaty and your wake-up jab will still beat them. I'm seeing guys get counter-hit on their wake-up, on their opponent's wake-up all the time. So just to extend on that, commit to it, be 100% to it, and be ready to convert when you see the connection, because that's what's going to separate the good players from the bad ones.
I think that's really important to note as well. Like, this game's very linear in terms of what they want you to be able to do in certain situations, and even more so on knockdowns. Like, the producers of the game know exactly what you can do after every knockdown. They've tweaked it to the pixel, to the frame specifically. So if you can work out exactly what your opponent's options are when they knock you down off certain things, and what you can do in different places and what they're going for, then you can more intelligently defend yourself. I mean, and we saw Infiltration do that really, really early on in the game when he was really exposing Tokido for using that back hard kick, meaty on his wake up, because he'd block the first hit, V reversal the second hit, get out of the corner every single time, and he knew that was coming. He knew Tokido's options more than Tokido did, and I think it's really important to educate yourself in the game about what you can and can't do on wake up, what situations are legit, what setups are real and actual meaty situations, and what are not, especially against characters with command grabs. That's absolutely vital. So I would say go and educate yourself, you know, learn what the setups are for the other characters out there after you've got yours down, because that's a definite as well. And then you can intelligently defend yourself by making these choices, like, you know, waking up with a light punch, DP, jump back option select, whatever you want to do in the game. You're going to see a lot more success there, because rather than making a guess, you're making an intelligent decision.
Mm-hmm. There you go. We ended on a positive note.
And we'll both be at CEO.
We'll both be at CEO. We'll be back here in 1 week's time to talk about it.
I'm going to win my pool.
Awesome.
And he thinks he's going to win his pool. Guys, again, thank you so much for joining us. Good luck in your future endeavors, and congratulations on that show on, did you say BBC?
Yeah, BBC Radio 1.
All right, we'll be listening out for that.
First I heard of it too, man. Congrats, Logan. Take care, guys.
All right, see you guys. Okay, that brings us to the end of the show. As you just mentioned, we'll be at CEO this weekend. On Tuesday, we'll be back to talk about it, and we're looking forward to that. Who knows who our guest will be? We won't know, but you'll know. on Tuesday of next week. We'll see you next week, guys.